"By the grace of the light, may your brethren be healed," the cleric said in a whisper. He bowed and backed away, to stand once more amongst his fellows. The Archbishop turned to the men on the right, and spoke again. "Knights of the Silver Hand, if you deem this man worthy, place your blessings upon him." Two of the armored men moved forward with obvious pride on their faces and stood solemnly in front of the dais. One of the men held a great, two-handed warhammer. The hammer's silvery head was etched with holy runes, and its haft was meticulously wrapped in blue leather. Tyrion could only marvel at the weapon's exceptional craftsmanship and beauty. The knight laid the hammer and the dais before Tyrion's feet. He then bowed his head and backed away. The second knight, carrying dual ceremonial shoulder plates, stepped forward and looked Tyrion in the eye. He was Saidan de Throhan, one of Tyrion's closest friends. The knight's face was alight with pride and excitement. Tyrion smiled knowingly. Visibly composing himself, Saidan placed the silver shoulder plates upon Tyrion's shoulders, and spoke in a stern voice. "By the strength of the light, may your enemies be undone." After he finished speaking, Saidan adjusted the silver plates, so that the blue stole streamed out from beneath them. He then backed away, and returned to the group of attendant knights. Tyrion's heart pounded in his chest. He was so overcome with joy that he felt almost light-headed. The Archbishop strode forward once again, and placed his hand upon Tyrion's head. "Arise and be recognized," he said. Tyrion got to his feet and marveled at the sheer magnitude of the honor being bestowed upon him. The Archbishop leveled his gaze at Tyrion, then read aloud from the book. "Do you, Tyrion Fordring, vow to uphold the honor and codes of the Order of the Silver Hand?" "I do," Tyrion replied earnestly. "Do you vow to walk in the grace of the light, and spread its wisdom to your fellow man?" "I do." "Do you vow to vanquish evil wherever it be found, and protect the weak and innocent with your very life?" Tyrion swallowed hard, and nodded while saying, "By my blood and honor, I do." He exhaled softly, overcome with emotion. The Archbishop closed the book and walked back toward the center of the altar. Turning to face the entire assembly, the Archbishop said, "Brothers, you who have gathered here to bear witness, raise your hands, and let the light illuminate this man." Each of the clerics and knights raised their right hands and pointed toward Tyrion. To Tyrion's amazement, their hands began to glow with a soft, golden radiance. He supposed that, in the excitement of the moment, his eyes were playing tricks on him. Yet, as he watched in wonder, the sunlight that poured in from above began to move slowly across the floor. As if in response to the assembly's command, the light came to rest upon Tyrion himself. Partially blinded by the intense radiance, Tyrion felt his body warmed and energized by its holy power. Every fiber of his being was ignited by divine fire. He could sense life-giving energies flowing through his limbs, energies enough to heal any wound or cure any disease. He mused that these energies were enough to burn even the souls of the accursed denizens of the shadow. Despite himself, he shuddered involuntarily. Ablaze with hope and joy, Tyrion knelt down and took hold of the mighty hammer, the symbol of his holy appointment and station. With joyous tears streaming down his face, he raised his head and looked toward the Archbishop, who smiled warmly back at him. "Arise, Tyrion Fordring, Paladin Defender of Lord Arryn. Welcome to the Order of the Silver Hand." The entire assembly erupted in cheers. Trumpets blared from the high balconies, and the cheerful din echoed through the vastness of the Cathedral of Light. Tyrion woke with a start. The sound of children's frolicking laughter came through the nearby window. Outside he could hear the familiar sounds of commerce and trade being conducted within the grounds of Mardenhild Keep. He was home, in his own bed. Shaking his head to clear his groggy mind, he wondered how long he had slept. His sheets were soaked with sweat, and he smelled as if he hadn't bathed in a week. His head was pounding so hard he felt as if it would burst. Sighing heavily, he remembered that he had been dreaming. He tried to recall the dream's details, but due to the incessant pounding in his skull, he could only grasp the faintest flashes of imagery: a robed man, a shiny hammer, and a vicious orc. A vicious orc. He surmised that he had dreamt of his appointment as a paladin. But surely there were no orcs present at that joyous ceremony. Slowly, more images began to flash in its mind. There had been a fight between himself and the orc, and he had lost. Nonsense, he thought absently. He mused that his dreams were becoming even more imaginative in his old age. Lifting his head from the sweat-soaked pillow, he attempted to get up and out of bed. A searing pain shot through him, and he lay back down, panting for breath. He stripped the blankets from his body and saw that his entire midsection had been neatly bandaged. Bruises and small lacerations covered most of his aching body. He was surprised to find that his arm had also been dressed and bandaged. Frantically, he tried to recall what had happened to him. Had the fight against the orc been real? For some strange reason, his memory seemed hazy and sluggish. His face contorted with pain as he struggled out of bed. Wrapping himself in his dressing robe, he made his way toward the sitting room of his private chambers. He found his young wife, Karandra, sitting quietly with her needle working a large plush chair near an open window. At seeing him enter the room, Karandra threw down her embroidery and rushed to meet him. She hugged him warmly, careful not to squeeze him too tightly. "Thank the light, you're awake," she said. Her young, delicate features were fixed with both relief and concern. Her blue eyes seemed to stare straight through him, as they always did. He smiled back and kissed her forehead lightly. He marveled, for perhaps the 10,000th time, at her beauty. "I was beginning to wonder if you were going to sleep clear through mid-year," she said. His eyebrow arched questioningly as he stroked her soft golden hair. "What do you mean? How long have I slept?" he asked. "Nearly 4 days," she replied flatly. Tyrion blinked in disbelief. 4 days, he mumbled to himself. That would explain the hazy memory, he mused.